In this video, we will be covering how to effectively cite your sources in the APA format. Citation is key to making your research paper go from a 50 to a 100. It provides a lot of benefits with regards to making your paper seem more credible and better in general. In this video, we will specifically be covering the APA format, since this format is the most common type of citation style used for scientific research purposes. So what are we going to be talking about in this slideshow? Firstly, an introduction towards what citation is. Secondly, why is citation important? Thirdly, the format towards APA. Fourthly, in-text citations. Fifthly, the reference list. And finally, some final tips to help you effectively cite your sources. So what is citation? Citation is the way you tell viewers of your paper that you have borrowed information from others. There are many ways to cite your sources, but in general, citation serves to 1. Acknowledge original authors of a text, and 2. Lead readers to discover more authors related to yourself and your publication. The third benefit is specific to certain citation styles, which is that on an academic level, citation styles provide a standardized method to which readers can acknowledge their sources and colleagues. You and your friend might cite sources differently. You might copy-paste your website URL, but your friend might only put the title. As a reader, it can be challenging to go from one paper to the other if all sources are credited differently. So citation styles help by making the way we cite sources uniform across the scientific world. This also helps especially when you read multiple papers from multiple sources. Some sources might be a book, but others might be a website. You can just easily copy-paste the website URL onto your paper, but you can't copy and paste a book. So the reason why citation matters a lot is so that it can also provide a uniform way we can easily credit different mediums of sources as well, and we can also just understand these sources way better. So, why is citation important? There are 4 reasons why citation is generally important. Firstly, it gives credit to the original authors of an idea that you may have borrowed from. Secondly, it avoids plagiarism. Plagiarism is defined as taking someone else's ideas and using it as your own. It is assumed that in a paper with no citation, everything you thought of is your original work. It is important to remember, plagiarism doesn't just include texts, but it also includes ideas to an extent. So you always should remember to cite your sources so that you can avoid plagiarism. Thirdly, it supports your own academic paper. When your paper is cited, people can reference your paper to other sources and can reference other sources to your own paper, making your thoughts be backed up not just by yourself, but by other authors you have cited from. And fourthly and finally, readers can find sources where they can further study on a certain topic. In this slideshow, we have included sources that you can read to further gain an understanding of citation. So what is the structure of citation? The APA format is the most commonly used citation in a scientific understanding. APA stands for the American Psychological Association. It has 2 parts in it. Firstly, in-text citations, and secondly, the reference list. So what are in-text citations? In-text citations briefly describe the source of the research paper or project. They are usually embedded into the research paper itself. So if you have a bunch of text in your research paper and you suddenly borrow an idea or directly quote something from another source, right after the idea or right after the quotation, you would include an in-text citation, which briefly states that you have borrowed something from another source. If it is just a general citation, such as an idea, you might use parentheses, the author's last name, and the year of publication. But if you were to directly quote something, like let's say you have an interviewer and they have said something and you want to quote what they have said, you would then use parentheses, the author's last name, the year of publication, and then the page number. Here are 3 examples, or 2 examples I guess, for how this may work. If you were to generally just quote a source in general, you would use Smith 2024, since you aren't directly quoting a specific quote. If you were to quote a specific idea or quote, you would use Smith 2024 and then the page number, in this case, page 10. But let's say you do not have the author's last name. If you don't have the author's last name, so let's say there was no author, or there was just a general organization that wrote this paper, you would use the organization's name in its full, and then the year in which the paper was publicated. So in this case, we have used the ClearScience Challenge 2024. Next is the reference list. What is the reference list? The reference list always appears at the end of your paper. So in comparison towards in-text citations, reference lists usually are at the end and they provide the full details of the sources you have borrowed from. It's important to remember that you need to have a reference list and in-text citations for your academic paper to be the best. So what is in a reference list? Reference lists always include the author's name, the publication year, the title, and the source details, such as whether it's a journal, a URL, or a book. The format for the reference list and citation, it's important to remember, will vary depending on the type of source you are using. For your sake, we have included some common examples of reference list formats for certain types of sources. If you were to cite a book, you would use the author's first and last name. In this case, we included the first and last initials A and A, the year it was published, the title of the book, and the publisher of the book. For journal articles, you would list all of the authors in general. So in this case, we had A and B, the year the journal article was published, the title of the article specifically, and the title of the journal, the volume number of the journal article, and the number of pages, and the DOI. For websites, you would use the author's name, the year, month, or date, the web title of the web page, and the website name or URL. Here are some final tips with regards to effective citation. Firstly, how do you speed up the process? Citation machines can easily be found online, and they can be used to speed up the process of citation. You can easily copy and paste a website URL, for instance, into a citation machine such as Scribbler, and you can just immediately get the proper citation in the proper format. It's important to always double check before submission. If you have no authors or no date, use the title of the source. If you have no date, say parentheses N.D, which stands for no date. And finally, for any other suggestions or tips, you can always consult the APA guide, which is publicly available and is the academic baseline for which all APA citations are based on. The APA guide can answer further questions and can be used to always cross-reference any questions you might have for how to effectively cite your sources in APA. Here are the sources that we have listed for this presentation, and that is all for today on effective citation. If you have any questions, feel free to email the organization, but thank you for listening towards this recording.